In a world where insanity reigns supreme and safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, it's comforting to know an ancient, fat, long-haired, bearded reprobate has your mind in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, and despite every attempt by the SHR Media Network to revoke his shameless contract, we return to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon.
I have come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubble.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Oh, the camera's in a different position now. Hello, up there. There we go. Welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media Network studios, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast, the Bill Mill, the Capitol building at 10th and L, downtown Sacramento, California, where at night, after 10 o'clock, where I leave out the door, straight ahead of me right there. As I open the door, I can smell the odoriferous stench of brimstone and sulfur from the evil from that nasty building downtown. I got to tell you this, you got a belly up to the bar. We've kept your seat, and it's great to see you back. Tonight, it is Thursday. It is March 7th, the year of our Lord 2019. And I got to tell you that, let's see, who is, I think, that's right, Snowball is going to be your bartendress tonight. She pours with the best of them, and the lava lamp is, in fact, lighted, except I think you can't see it in the new TV shot, but that's all right, we'll take care of this, because the studio got moved around a little bit, okay? Anyway, she pours with the best of them, the lava lamp is lighted, and I got to tell you this, we don't water our drinks. Just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the Saloon. Nothing is sacred. The speech is free, but the booze is not. All that we ask is you flush the damn toilet, jiggle the handle. And don't forget to tip your waitress. Okay? 2 hours tonight. The first hour is with a gentleman that I just met on Twitter. And he is here. This is one of only 2 times that I've been he's only the second person that we've had in the studio. The first one was Matt Sylvie, and most of my guests are from the East Coast. It just kind of works out that way. I don't know why. It just does. But tonight, for the first hour, I have a very unique opportunity to talk to a gentleman that... Well, I just kind of met him on Twitter, and I met him physically about an hour ago. But I have to tell you that it's my clear, distinct pleasure to interview somebody, like I said, live right here in the studio, in the Sacramento SHR Media Studios. Oh, my gosh. Oh, it is? Okay. So, this is nice. Sackhead Sean is just pointing out that, oh, no, you big dummy. If you look in the frame, you can see that the lava lamp is, in fact, lighted right over there. And I should have been looking, and okay, thanks again. Sackhead Sean, that's true. You're right. Anyway, like I said, most of my guests hail from the East Coast, and because this is a late-night wireless show, that means that people generally have to stay up till about 11 o'clock on the East Coast. We're starting at about 8 o'clock here on Pacific, and that's not really conducive to appealing to a lot of the people that happen to be on the East Coast. And always, I would much rather always speak to somebody live then it's so much nicer to speak to somebody live than it is over the telephone, which is customarily how this happens. Yeah. And it's nice to see that James E. Horn is in the studio with me tonight. He has a CV of great depth and breadth. Jim, you don't know this, but I customarily enjoy embarrassing people with their own CVs. And tonight will be no different because... Okay. You have one that's extremely extensive. Actually, it would probably be nice, folks, if you could see. There's Jim. Okay. This is from Amazon and a couple of other places. James Horn, right there, one each, is a retired U.S. diplomat who has a deep understanding of Islam based on a decade of counterintelligence and counterterrorism work in Islamic countries. He is a retired American diplomat and a member of various and sundry national security agencies. Mr. Horn happened to hold the highest levels of top security clearances because he worked in intelligence, counterintelligence, counterterrorism, and other related areas. Anyone who has done such work when they want to write a book, and he has written 3, they have to submit manuscripts for review to make sure that state secrets aren't divulged. And his first book was called Experiencing Islam, Becoming Islam Aware. And we'll talk about becoming Islam aware, because that's a separate thing in and of itself. And they left, you said, about 99% of it untouched. The book is politically incorrect. You're kind of politically incorrect, so you belong here.
Good. I'm happy to be here.
With us. Apparently, according to what you said, it's banned from a couple of libraries.
Librarians have banned it because it's politically incorrect.
It says if the disclaimer for your book, folks, and another reason why I like Mr. Horn is if you have an inferiority complex, before you read the book, check first with your friends, family, politicians, bureaucrats, priests, rabbis, imams, mullahs, and others such as mystics, psychics, favorite entertainers, psychiatrists, and anyone you feel is wiser, smarter, or better than yourself in order to get approval for exposing yourself to its contents. All right, hey, somebody that writes something like that, I like that a lot.
Okay, I'm glad you did.
James Horn is a veteran who served one enlistment in the Navy before joining the Foreign Service in the Diplomatic Corps.
Yes.
You served our nation abroad for a quarter of a century, mostly in third world nations, including 10 years in Islamic nations. You have experienced Islam up close and personal, and you have survived one attack intended to kill you. And you've received numerous threats because you are an American and you serve the American people pretty well. Your Amazon.com webpage says that you are patriotic to a fault. Well, no fault detected here. But you led security teams to North Africa and the Persian Gulf, where you made security changes and improvements to embassies and consulates that made them terrorist-proof. With that, and I'll continue with the CV, and folks, trust me, it keeps going.
Okay.
So Mr. Horn here has definitely committed to the United States of America, but with that and your knowledge training and education training and experience in consulates, armoring them, making sure that they have excellent security.
Yes.
When I first read that, the first thing that came back to me is, you know what, I need to talk to you about Benghazi.
Okay.
So that's another thing that I need to remind myself of. And the other thing is I need to make sure that... There we go. Now we can get both of us here. You are highly critical of Islam, which you refer to as a cult, an ideology, not a true religion of salvation.
No, it is not.
Which is very interesting. I've been writing on my blog since 2004. And when I started writing about that, Islam, it got into my wheelhouse, of course, because of 9/11. And I came to the conclusion after reading lots and lots and lots of stuff that, in my opinion, and I will ask you about this, in my opinion, there is no such thing as a moderate Muslim.
Nope.
That's just my opinion. There are simply Muslims who aren't doing it right, in my opinion. I have been saying for a long time that Islam is as Islam does, and that's how you should judge it. And unfortunately, it's not judged in that fashion. And then I went a little bit further and I said, you can quantify Islam as a religion, but I tend to say it's more of a social, cultural, economic, military, and political ideology kind of masquerading as a religion. So any thoughts, James Horn, about that? In other words, from your experience, the totality of your experience, what is your overall belief or thought about Islam?
Islam is evil. I've all of my life I've been interested in faith-based religions.
Okay.
And my family did not have religion at home. When I was a teenager, I went to a church and I became active in the church and I learned about Christianity. After I got out of the military, I went to university for a little while. Then I went back I went into the Foreign Service and went overseas. My first place was Istanbul, Turkey. And I was always curious about Islam. So I went to, and I found an imam who spoke English at the Blue Mosque right on the Bosphorus Straits. And he started teaching me about Islam. He lied to me. But I didn't know it because people say if you want to learn about Islam, go ask an imam.
Okay.
Because
you're talking about the T word.
Yeah. A clergyman is supposed to be honest. Well, these guys were clergymen. They were not honest. They were telling me stuff to befuddle me, to make me believe how wonderful Islam was, and to try and get me to become a convert to Islam. This was a weekly session. After about 6 months, things started to not jibe. And so I asked a couple of other people about it, and there was an old Muslim in the consulate, and I started asking him. And he was not a devout Muslim. He was just born in Islam. And he started telling me, no, this guy is feeding you a line of shit. He's trying to get you to convert. And this is what they do. This is what the dawah is. Dawah is spreading the message of Islam in a way that the recipient will accept Islam, not to tell the truth about it.
Okay.
Okay. In Islam, they practice two things. One is called taqiyya.
Yes, that was the T word that I was talking about. Yeah. Yes.
Taqiyya is where you're told to lie. It's okay to lie. In Christianity, it's not right to lie. Sin, that's a sin. But for them, anything you can say to advance the cause of Islam, to befuddle the infidel or the enemy, is okay. Another thing is they call kitman. Kitman is not telling the whole story. For instance, they say Islam is a religion of peace. President George Bush got out and said Islam is a religion of peace. Well, the peace of Islam is peace as long as you submit to the will of Islam, the will of Allah. Otherwise, you have no peace. So this is one of the things that people don't get the message. They hear it. Oh, Islam is wonderful. My neighbor down the road is a Muslim. He's a nice guy. But they haven't been to Syria. They haven't been to Iraq. They haven't been to Karachi. They haven't been to Islamabad. They haven't been to Cairo or any of those places there, or like you mentioned earlier, Benghazi. And when you go to those places and you see Islam in action, you know that you're dealing with something that is truly, truly fundamentally evil. Even for Muslims, they don't like each other. I learned that in Turkey. Again, I was just a young guy, and I started to observe that the Turks didn't seem to like Americans or the British or the Germans or the French, their NATO allies. They didn't seem to like us very much. But I found out that they hate each other.
I'm trying to remember exactly how it goes, so I'm going to have to paraphrase as best I can.
Okay.
Me against my brother. Me and my brother against my cousin. Me and my brother and my cousin against the town. Me and my brother and my cousin and the town against the outsider.
Yes. That's exactly what it is.
And I can distinctly remember that I retired as a sergeant with a local sheriff's department around here. So I supervised a lot of guys that came back from the Middle East, a lot of Middle East veterans, etc.
Yes.
Some of the best, most squared away troops that I've had the luxury of supervising, because you provided direction and you turn them loose, and because they've operated in a paramilitary atmosphere before,
and they
just go ahead. They've got discipline. They've got a mindset of discipline and sacrifice, and they just go straight ahead. And I can remember having distinct conversations with these guys, and that was one of the things that they said. They said some other things which we can get into a little bit later, that were shocking to me. Mm-hmm. I first came in on a conversation, and folks, I'm going to tell you up front, this is a late night radio show. We say F and S words every once in a while, and then we provide concepts to you that perhaps you haven't heard before. And I was listening, and I'll be frank and upfront, to two veterans of the Middle East. One had been in Iraq, the other one had been in Afghanistan. And they were talking to each other. I was passing by, overheard the conversation, and I heard something similar to, it was a hell of a thing when I discovered in terms of the way that Islam is practiced in the Middle East. I learned pretty much immediately that women are for procreation and little boys are for pleasure.
Especially in Afghanistan and Pakistan.
That caught me up, and I stopped. And as you might imagine, my mouth fell open, and they were a little chagrined that I overheard what they'd said. But one of them said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to tell you anything more, but get on your favorite search engine and go insert Baka Batsi boys.
Baka Batsi.
Bachabazi boys. And I'm not going to describe it. I'll just let you folks right now get on your favorite search engine and go ahead and see what you get as a result of that.
Well, I discussed some of that stuff in the book I have, Muslim Men Fear Women.
Yes, that was your second book, right?
That was my third book.
Third book, okay.
Yeah, and the subtitle of that book is Islam is Toxic for Females. And I talk about how Muslim men and how it's evolved in that part of the world, they want to have sexual pleasure. Well, they can do that with a young girl when she's a virgin, but after she's had one or two children in a part of the world where they have no gynecologist who can repair women if they've torn delivering babies, these guys want something that's nice and tight and snug. And that's what they like to go to little boys, because they get pleasure from boys. And after a while, they just have these women, they make them pregnant so they can have more Muslims and stuff like that. But the women are property. You don't marry a woman for love. Your family arranges the marriage, you provide a dowry, and you buy her and she becomes your property. Or sometimes they can go out and they can buy a woman. She's a slave. There is no woman in the Middle East, in the world of Islam, who is free. They might pretend to be free, they might have a few liberties and stuff like that, but they are owned, they are controlled, they are documented, and they do what they are told to do by their men. One of the fundamentals of Islam is if a woman does not have her husband's approval, she cannot go to heaven. She must go to hell. And Muhammad said that 80% of women go to hell because they don't please their husbands enough. The woman is taught from the moment she's born that her sole purpose in life is to obey and please the men. They don't have anything else. That's why you get people like Rashida Tlaib. You've got Linda Sarsour.
See, that's... Folks, we're talking to James Horn, who is a terror, and I think you were quantified at one time, if I'm not mistaken, correct me, as like one of the top 100 Muslim experts in the United States.
Probably, yes. Mm-hmm.
We're talking to James Horn, and his requisite training, education, and experience is such that you've worked in terror, counterterrorism, you worked at consulates, you've done so many jobs, it's not even remotely interesting. So I want to emphasize tonight that Jim is here not because he wants to just arbitrarily say these things about Islam, but he has experienced this up front and personal in front of his very face. So these aren't things that he's making up out of whole cloth. He's done the training, he's done the education, he's got the experience to know what he's saying. But these are unfortunately things that some, perhaps many people, find difficult to understand.
People do.
About Islam. And you mentioned Linda Sarsour, you mentioned Tlaib. We were talking about, there's been a big kerfuffle about Omar, the two newest Muslim women that are in the Congress in D.C. these days. I do not understand the relationship between leftists, males, of course, but more particularly leftist females, because under an Islamic regime, leftists and the things that leftists embrace would be the first people slaughtered, gotten rid of, and the things that they open-hearted, that they embrace themselves, the LGBT community, homosexuality, etc., would be some of the first things that would be completely ridden if Islam becomes the dominant religion, although I use that air quotes, religion.
Dominant control system.
In the United States. And
yes.
These are unfortunate, these are, and I can't even say that. I can't say that it's unfortunate that these things need to be said. These are heavy things that a lot of people don't want. I'll just be upfront. People don't want to hear this. They don't want to understand what Islam is. And it's not the nice, furry, little lovely religion. It is a misogynistic religion. It is a male-favored religion. And I do not and cannot understand why any woman on the planet, except one who is brainwashed,
well, they're brainwashed from the time they come out of the womb,
would even remotely embrace
well, they're
this.
Not, because they're afraid of going to hell, because they're taught very early that hell is very, very real, and it's very, very bad, and you're going to be there forever. But in America here, most Americans, and I've experienced this with my own family back in Minnesota, you have their house, they have a job, they have a church, they have the kids in the school. Their whole world is within a 30-mile circle radius. They don't know anything outside of that. They've not experienced anything outside of that. So all they work with in their minds is that little tiny world they live in, and they can't conceive. They can't understand the concept of something like that being that weird, that evil, that nasty, that controlling. In Muslim countries, if you are not a Muslim, you are a dhimmi. And the dhimmi has a contract in order to live. They pay a special jizya tax once a year. They have to give up some of their wealth every year. They have very, very few legal rights. You go to Cairo, or you go to Syria, or you go to any one of those countries, you get in a taxi. The taxi is a Muslim. Because if a Christian is driving that taxi and he has an accident, you're automatically wrong. Automatically wrong. You go to jail. I had a friend in Istanbul. He was driving home from work one day, and he pulled into a left turn lane. The guy behind him thought he was going into the left turn lane to pass everybody, because that's what they do. Me first, me first, me first. And when my friend stopped, this Mercedes piled into him, destroyed his car. They went to court because of the accident. The Mercedes was badly damaged. My friend's car was destroyed. And the judge sat there and said, okay, you, Mr. Brown, you are going to pay 90% of the damage for his car, and you're going to pay for all of your car. And they said, what do you mean pay for this guy's car? He ran into me. Wow, but you're an American. You're black. You're a Christian. You don't have any rights. That was it. And that's the way it works in a Muslim court. If you're not a Muslim, you don't have the rights, and they're going to punish you for not being, for being there. So you're not going to get a Christian driver in Cairo. You're not going to get a Christian driver in Karachi. It's just not going to happen that way, because if a Muslim slams into another Muslim, they have to deal with each other. But always, if you ever go to those places and you take a taxi, have the money, the fee in your hand. So if they hit somebody or somebody hits them, you throw the money on the front seat, you get out of the car and get the hell out of there. Otherwise, you're going to be in trouble, because you're going to be responsible because you hired that car, and he wouldn't have been there if you hadn't have told him to go there.
Okay. Important safety tip for everybody.
Yes.
Folks,
yes.
We're talking to James Horn. He is a terror and Muslim expert, or an expert on Islam, I should say. And I have been remiss in not saying welcome and chat to the Alaskan, Mary Brockman, Robin Duffy, Dave Milner, one viewer, and all the people that are just tuning in on the Redcon One Media Network, courtesy of Big Sarge. I thank you ever so kindly about that. We've got about 4 more minutes, it looks like, before the bottom of the hour break. I want to start back a little bit. Now, I think you said that you were born in Minnesota?
I was born in an army hospital in Kansas during World War II.
Oh, okay. All right.
But my mother and father split because, well, their marriage was a shotgun marriage anyways. So they split. My mother went back to Minneapolis, and that's where I grew up. And I got out of high school when I was 17, and the next day I joined the Navy. I was very happy to get away from that, and I by going in the Navy, I discovered that the whole world didn't turn to ice in October. Instead, they went until April. So I didn't really go back. That's why I'm in Southern California.
So you went to the Navy, and after
One enlistment.
Did you do any sea duty?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I didn't do a lot of sea duty. I did overseas duty. I was on 2 different ships for different purposes. My first ship was home ported in Brooklyn,
Okay.
and I was decommissioned after one trip over to the Europe and back.
Wow.
And then later on, I was on another ship during the Cuban blockade. I had overseas duty. I was stationed in Sigonella City, and I used to catch flights with the Naval Air people because of the Naval Air Station, and I've been to Benghazi. So I've traveled around different parts like that. I was part-time crew member once in a while, so I could get along and go out and see different places and different things. It was very good for me. But I experienced Islam early in Benghazi, where people outside of the fence would throw rocks at us when we walked around inside the base. They didn't like us, and I didn't understand why. I thought everybody loved Americans. No, if you're a Christian,
quite so much.
If you're a Christian and you're on Muslim soil, you are violating them. They don't like anybody being there who's not one of them. So if you're going to be there, you have to submit to the rules or join them.
I made a comparison a while ago, and it's kind of a Star Trek reference.
Mm-hmm.
I referred to Islam, and I was immediately corrected by somebody who overheard me. I said, basically, for what I'm getting out of this is that Islam is kind of like the Borg. Resistance is futile. You will be assimilated, or will find some way to eliminate you in some fashion.
Islam, if you remember, after Southeast Asia fell, the Angkor took over Cambodia and killed 1/3 of the population.
Oh, the Khmer Rouge.
The Khmer Rouge. They were called the Angkor to the Cambodians. Okay, that's what Islam is. If you don't do it our way, if you're not one of us, if you've done anything to offend us, you're dead, or you're going to die, or you're going to suffer terrible consequences. In Cambodia, if people had fillings in the teeth, that means they were rich enough to have gone to a dentist. Kill them. If they wore glasses, they must be educated. Kill them. And that's what this stuff boils down to. If anybody's read George Orwell's 1984.
Oh, yes. I bought copies of 1984 for the 2 owners of SHR.
Yeah.
Because I've read that for years.
I just bought one and sent it to my grandson, because this is something that I was subjected to when I was in, I think, 8th or 9th grade in school. I had a teacher who had been a POW in Korea. So he had some very, very strong feelings about communism and about socialism and stuff like that. So he had us kids read that book and give reports on it. And I read that book and I was just amazed, because I had no idea that things like that could be happening. And we look around now, it's happening. It's happening especially in China, where people have a social social report card.
A social rating scale, if you will.
Yeah, if you've annoyed somebody or done something right, you can't get on a bus, you can't get on a train, you can't go here, you can't do that, you can't shop here. I mean, it's all these controls, and you've got to comply or you suffer a consequence. And that's why they're turning all of China into a bunch of little trolls. They're going to go around doing exactly what is expected of them, because if they do anything unexpected, they're going to be in trouble.
Well, everyone keeps telling us that China is such a wonderful, accepting country. Look at Hong Kong. Folks, I want to get back to 1984 and Eric Arthur Blair, who was, George Orwell was the pen name of Eric Arthur Blair. And the book, if I'm not mistaken, was written in 1947.
1948.
48? Okay.
He reversed the years.
Damn. And I was close. Anyway, the things that he wrote about in 1984 is stuff that's occurring right now. And that's actually very frightening. Folks, you're listening to James Horn. I'm BZ, the Bloviating Zeppelin. This is the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct from the SHR Media studios, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. We're going to be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday, from 7 to 9 a.m., right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome back to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California. Tonight, for the first hour, I have the pleasure of speaking to Mr. James Horn, who is an expert on Islam, terror, has a ton of experience with regard to the U.S. government, and there's so many things that I want to ask you about, and of course, there's so little time. Before the break, we were talking about 1984, about the book 1984, and during the break, Let me see if I can go back to this here. Come on. Be kind. There we go. During the break, we were talking about the book 1984. I said it was written in 1947. You corrected me. It was 1948 by George Orwell. But it was absolutely prescient when it was written at its time. And I indicated that I gave a couple of copies to the owners of SHR here, and that I submit that it's every bit as applicable now, even more so than it was then.
Yes.
Because of all the what we're seeing is 1984 unfolding right in front of our faces.
When I read the book about 1956, it was like a forecast of the future, and it was to me it was science fiction. But it was my first experience with what you might call science fiction, and it scared me because the teacher that had me read it was so prescient about socialism and the type of future that was in store for us. He wanted us to be aware of it so we could work to avoid it or to understand it when it started happening. And it's happening now. And it is incredible because it was so accurate. The things that he talked about in 1948 that were unimaginable, even to me in 1956, I was thinking, how can you have a TV set that's going to monitor you? Well, we've got them now. Smart TVs.
We have almost everything. The Internet of Things now that are designed to monitor us in every way, shape, manner, and form.
Oh yeah, we each have a cell phone in our pocket. We can't move 3 feet that the cell phone's not tracking our every movement. I have people that I meet with that I talk about Islam, and we do things that the Muslims don't like very much. We don't use iPhones. We use cell phones that you can open up and remove the battery.
Oh, that's an excellent point, because iPhones are proprietary, and you cannot change an iPhone battery yourself. It has to be done by an Apple technician, correct?
Mm-hmm. It's a real tricky thing to do. But with my Samsung, I can open up, take the battery out, and we can have our conversation, and nobody's going to listen to it. Then we put our battery back in and go on about our way. Or if I want to go someplace and I don't want to be tracked, I take the battery out of my cell phone.
Yep.
And I drive over there and I park and I do my thing, and then I come home, put the battery back in.
Yep.
So nobody's been able to track me. This is the type of privacy that is important to me, because I'm doing things that the Muslims don't like at all.
It's the length that you have to go to now in order to retain something that was so common, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We were used to privacy. There's almost no damn thing like that anymore.
Not anymore.
I have a cut that I'd like to play from Colonel Alan West, and he was on a panel. I think this was back in 2015, and Colonel Alan West, if I'm not mistaken, I think he ran for president for a while.
He was in Congress,
and he was also in Congress in Florida.
Then he toyed around and he thought about running for president, but he couldn't get the traction he needed.
Anyway, he's on a panel here.
We're talking about how to identify the enemy, and last week, Helen Thomas, pausing for booing, she was.
You can see this dates a little.
Bombing incident, and they were talking with the counterterrorism czar, and her question was, why do they want to do this? And the answer was, well, because there's this warped version of Islam that...
Okay, that they're talking about, just to let you know, why do they want to do this? They're referring to Islam.
It's motivating them, and her question again was, why? Why would they warp a religion in order to attack us, as if that was the order that had happened? And so we got to attack America, let's warp Islam. What do you say to people who will jump through any mental hoops in order to make us the bad guy? Because her conclusion is that they are fighting a war to be isolated and sovereign, not a war against us. How do you answer people like that?
The panel is...
You're the smartest guy here. We're going to stick you with the hardest question.
We got some legal advice here.
The panel is dumbfounded.
I'd say take the fifth.
Yeah. I mean, they just have to increase their understanding of what's going on. I mean, they don't understand the foundation of what's going on, so they need to increase their reading.
Sure, but people like Helen Thomas drive the debate that other people see every day on TV. How do you answer them? How do you explain to them why she's wrong?
Hopefully, there are other voices out there that are rational.
Alan West is about to chime in, and it's exquisite.
Let me say this.
Here we go.
And this
is Alan West.
I don't care about being popular, whatever. The first thing you got to do is you got to study and understand who you're up against. And you must realize that this is not a religion that you're fighting against. You're fighting against a theopolitical belief system and construct. You're fighting against something that's been doing this thing since 622 AD, 7th century, 1388 years. You want to dig up Charles Martel and ask him why he was fighting the Muslim army at the Battle of Tours in 732. You want to ask the Venetian fleet at Lepanto why they were fighting a Muslim fleet in 1571. You want to ask the Christian, the Germanic and Austrian knights why they were fighting at the gates of Vienna in 1683. You want to ask people what happened at Constantinople and why today is called Istanbul, because they lost that fight in 1453. You need to get into the Quran. You need to understand their precepts. You need to read the Surah. You need to read the Hadiths. And then you can really understand this is not a perversion. They are doing exactly what this book says.
Yeah.
But, all right. And I want to close by saying this. And I think that we have said this all through this morning so far. Until you get principled leadership in the United States of America that is willing to say that, we will continue to chase our tail, because we will never clearly define who this enemy is and then understand their goals and objectives, which is on any jihadist website, and then come up with the right and proper goals and objectives to not only secure our republic, but to secure Western civilization. Thank you.
That was exquisite. I can't think of any better summary, and that's why I wanted to play it tonight. Yeah. This is the kind of stuff that he said off the top of his head.
He has been dealing with Muslims since he was in Iraq in the first Iraq War. And he got cashiered because he did something to protect his troops. He had a Muslim that he was interrogating, looking for a couple of missing soldiers, and the guy was being belligerent. Alan West took out his .40 and he fired off a round into the chair between this guy's legs. He sat up and he sang to Alan West. Alan West was able to save his troops, but he got cashiered because he tortured a prisoner. That's bullshit. This is what we are, our own worst enemies. I have friends who went to Vietnam and did not come home because they were told by a stupid politician someplace or some bureaucrat with the CIA that you can't do this, that you can't do that. If you're shot at from this side of the road at night, you can't shoot back. Only in the daytime can you shoot back, etc., etc., etc. And they killed American soldiers. We've had American soldiers dying in Iraq. We had American soldiers dying in Afghanistan because they've had politically correct people telling them how to do stuff that didn't know their asses from a hole in the ground, and that's why we've lost so many people. I'm very happy that we got the hell out of Iraq. I was very unhappy that we put soldiers into Afghanistan and we still have them there.
Went to my next question, but go ahead and finish your thought, please.
We've got people dying for what? They're not the Afghanis. Afghanistan is something that is impossible to deal with. The British were there for 160 years trying to bring some semblance of civilization to the Afghanis. They left after 160 years with their asses in a basket.
And the Russians.
And the Russians went in with 500,000 men for 20 years, and they lost their asses on a silver platter when they left. Now we're in there with a couple thousand. We think we're going to make something happen? No, we're there to... We put the soldiers in there to be targets for the Afghan gunmen. And that's the only thing we're getting out of it, because these people have two things that are modern. The buttons on their shirts and their AK-47s. Everything else goes back to the 7th century. Their mentality, their thinking, and everything else in their lives is all 7th century mentality. And they don't want to modernize. They don't want to have Mercedes-Benzes, except for a couple of them. They don't want television sets. They want to have the world the way they want it. This is what Afghanistan is. It's a primitive, primordial group of people that don't want to do anything. And I've written in one of my books, the only way you could ever tame Afghanistan would be one to go in there and defoliate the entire country. Then put drones in the air with night vision, and you see anybody walking around carrying a gun, you blow them away. You bring all the children in and you put them into Western-style education away from their families for about 4 or 5 generations. Then you might start getting through to them. Other than that, you're beating your head against the wall.
This is what I think it kind of gets down to, because I've been asked this question. I should imagine that you've probably been asked this question. I know a lot of people have. And and that is, well, wait a minute. We need to be over there in the Middle East to make sure that all of the things that are happening there don't happen over here. Isn't that why we're fighting in Syria? Isn't that why we're in Iraq? Isn't that why we're in Afghanistan? Isn't that why we have an interest in Iran? So a lot of people are saying, okay, well, wait, we should come back. And the first thing I hear in reply to that is, no, we want to stave it off there so it doesn't come over here.
We have to do things to stave it off over here, but it's already here.
Okay, beautiful. Stop. That's the perfect point, and I think that's the time that I need to play this. I just found this on Twitter, and as I told you during the break, this is a man that I believe is on the outskirts of Minneapolis. And when he names the area, he does name the area. You'll probably have a better idea of where he is. But I want you to listen, folks. I want you to listen to the guy. And by the way, I'm talking to James Horn, who's an Islam expert and also an expert on terror. Listen to this, and I'd like your reaction after I get through. This is about a 2-minute, 12-second cut.
You know, they say that ministers and rabbis and Catholic priests, they shouldn't get involved in politics. I think that this is a time we should speak up. I'm here today because West Virginia is $784 million in debt.
Oh, West Virginia.
Absolute debt. Right here, they're building brand new houses. Now they've taken the white folks and black folks and they moved them down the road here to substandard housing conditions, so that 321 Syrian Muslims can move down in this neighborhood in 2 months when these are completed. This is at a cost of $87 million. You see that funeral home over there? It is to be torn down in 2 months, and a mosque is going to be built there. In 6 months, this place is going to be a Sharia zone, meaning no non-Christians can walk down here except Muslims. Now, why would they take white Americans and black Americans and throw them down over there in substandard housing and give this to the Islamic people who come here last month? You all remember on WOWK News? They come here 3 months ago, 321, and you all cheered and came down here and protested. They're living here free on your taxpayers' money while regular Americans are suffering down the street here. These Islamic people here, they get $400 for each child while the regular Americans get nothing. They get cars, they get phones, they get free health care. And regular Americans, black and whites, they're suffering. When is America going to speak up for our people? Screw these Muslims and get them out. This is where your money is, West Virginia. $87 million of your tax money is right here while your own people are suffering. You want to raise taxes on cigarettes at $1 a pack. Meanwhile, everybody going to Kentucky and making Kentucky very wealthy people. You want to raise taxes on gasoline. Everybody going across the border to get it. You politicians, you need to speak up. You need to say, no, we're not having this. We have Americans suffering in this country right now. Here's your proof. 87 million West Virginia taxpaying dollars is going to Islamic refugees right here.
Let me stop that right now, because what we're hearing, obviously, James Horn, is a bitter, ugly, racist, Islamophobic, terrible, evil white man who's blathering about the poor Muslims who are poor refugees from Somalia that have come into West Virginia, and we need to account for these poor people. I mean, isn't that who that guy is?
Those are Syrians in West Virginia. They're Somalis in Minneapolis.
Okay.
But they feel that they have a right to make us support them. That is what the contract of the dhimmi is. That is what it is for non-Muslims in the Muslim world. They sit on their butts. They make babies. They do whatever they want to do. And we have to give them free housing. We have to buy their food. We have to give them free medicine. That's what Obamacare was. Muslims didn't have to pay for Obamacare. Okay? Because the white man is going to pay for the people who work in honest people earn a living. We're going to charge for all that stuff, and this is what they want to do. It's happened in Germany. Germans are getting kicked out of homes they've lived in for 20 years, 25 years, 50 years, so that they can put Muslims into their homes, and these Germans are being shoved into shitty little apartments made out of plywood and plastic. And it's happening all over Europe. They're doing it here, and this is what the Muslims think they have a right to do to us. And a lot of our politicians agree with that, because the politicians have got their hands out. For instance, the Saudis alone have a $20 billion budget in Washington, D.C. to pay off politicians. They hire the K Street lobbyists, and the K Street lobbyists go out and they go to the congressmen, they go to the senators. They don't identify themselves as working for the Saudis. They say, my client has an interest in this happening, and this is what we would like you to do. By the way, would you like another $600,000 for your next campaign? Here's my checkbook. And this is these whores in politics sell out to this stuff. And it's not only happening in Washington, D.C. It's happening right here in Sacramento. It's happening in the counties all over the place.
It certainly is.
In the area I lived in before, Temecula, they came in about 15 years ago, and they wanted to build a 44,000 square foot mosque in a community that had about 60 Muslims. Go figure. They're going to build that mosque, and they're going to bring in thousands and thousands of members, and they're going to take over that city. I worked really, really hard, and I was very, very successful because that 44,000 square foot mosque was not built. We had a city council meeting that went on until 4 o'clock in the morning. I was being confronted by Muslims from the Council on American Islamic Relations, the Muslim Students Association, and stuff like that. But we dealt with it, and it made it so uncomfortable for the city council members because I was asking, how much did you get paid for this? And they didn't want to. They didn't. Yeah. So they finally said, okay, you can have a mosque, but you can only have 4,000 square feet, not 44,000 square feet. And you can have some covenants and conditions that you have to adhere to. And they laid it on to the Muslims. The Muslims went out. They started building this mosque. They were using construction equipment that was outlawed in California because of the air quality management stuff. It's the first time I liked Cali EPA because we were going to call them in. And they went to the site and they said, that bulldozer there, not often, we're shutting you down until that bulldozer's of the state. So they did that kind of stuff. And the Muslims got their mosque, but they are very, very unhappy with me because of what I did to do that. You know, this is what we have to do all over the country. I have worked with people in Philadelphia. I've worked with people in New Jersey. I've worked with people in Minnesota and given them pointers and stuff like that on how they can thwart mosques. And they've been successful in some instances. In some instances, they weren't because the city council people already had their pockets padded well with Muslim money. And that's the way they do it. Muslims are corrupt. They buy. They pay. They're willing to pay for what they want if they can do it for the long-term gain of winning over us, because that's what Muhammad wants them to do. You use your wealth, you use your skill, you use everything you can to conquer the infidel, and we are the infidels, and we are the main target. If the United States falls, the world falls.
Bingo. Okay. Wait, that deserves this. That's what I've said for quite some time. Yeah. America is an extremely unique experiment. It's the last best hope of the rest of the planet. Now, we'll get to some of the Congress critters that just recently got installed in D.C., because now, of course, the moment that they are installed, now there's a big kerfuffle about them being anti-Semites. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that there's no history of Islam being anti-Semitic at all. So, obviously, it must be a white Anglo-Islamophobe like me that's pointing these things out. But before we go, let's see, we got about 6 more minutes before the end of the first hour here. I want to emphasize this to everybody that's watching right now. This is James Horn, James E. Horn. He has written 3 books that I see right here. You can go to Amazon.com or your favorite bookseller. You don't have to go to Amazon, but I'm looking at the page right here. For
my website.
Oh, you can get them through your website?
www.jamesehorn, no periods.com.
Okay.
And it shows my books. It shows my blog. It's got a couple video clips in there. If somebody wants to have me come and speak, I'm very, very ready, willing, and able. So there's a lot of information there. One of the things I have to point out that I put in the forward of all of my books, or in the end of one of the books, but it's a glossary of Muslim Islamic terms. And
okay.
It lists about 60 words and gives what their meaning is. And it's pretty interesting. And if people just read the glossary, you get a hell of an education about Islam, because it tells what they think about us, how they want to treat us, how they believe we should be treated. And it comes right out of the Quran, and it comes out of a book called The Traveler, Traveller, which is Sharia law codified. It's about 1,100 pages long. And half of the book is devoted on how to treat the Christians. It's not just Muslim law. It's about how to treat Christians. And that's what the Quran is about. Muhammad talks about killing Christians, hating. Allah hates Christians. Allah hates the unbelievers. Allah hates this. And you cut the fingertips off before you cut the throat. Make them suffer the pain before they die, because this is what Allah wants. You got to have pain before you die. That's what it is with their halal meat. You go to a butcher shop, they have halal meat that's killed in accordance with the laws of Islam. How is it killed in accordance with the laws of Islam? They don't stun the animal. They don't shoot it in the brain. They cut its throat slowly, so it struggles and it suffers in panic and pain before it dies. That's the good way of killing an animal.
As well, we know. Now, the books that I want to emphasize to people, and the folks that are listening live in chat right now on Redcon One Media and the SHR Media Network, there's a book that you can get from jamesehorn.com called Muslim Men Fear Women. Islam is Toxic for Females. We talked about that earlier in the first half hour. Another book written by James E. Horn, Experiencing Islam, Becoming Islam Aware. The other one, Islam in the Workplace by James Horn. About three, let's see, yeah, we got about 3 minutes left, and I think this probably would be a good wrap-up question. What does Islam aware mean?
Being Islam aware is understanding the true meaning of Islam and what the goals Islam has for you, what their objective is for you, what the objective is with an American caliphate. What will happen to the American people in an American caliphate? Will your 14-year-old daughters be peeled off the street and raped for a week or 2 weeks and then sold off into slavery or just cast into an ash heap? That's what they do in those countries, okay? A Christian woman can't leave her home in Cairo if she's an attractive young female, because she'll be kidnapped and used as a sex toy until she's worn out, and then they'll throw her away. That's what they'll do here. That's what they're probably doing, but our authorities won't report these rapes. They won't report these disappearances. That's occurring in Europe, right?
That's already occurring in Europe?
Yeah.
All those things?
Yeah. One of the things they like, years ago, they would come over here and meet young women in colleges and marry them, bring them back to the home country. In 1979, when the Shah was thrown out of Iran, there were 30,000 American and European women in Iran. And when everything go to hell and Islam started taking over, these women wanted to leave. About 10,000 got out. 20,000 have never been heard from. Think about what happened to those women who wanted to leave that terrible situation that was evolving around them, that was enslaving them, and they couldn't get away. They were either killed off or they were sold into slavery or whatever, but their families never heard from them again. Can you imagine what that would be like here in the United States? If your child is walking down the street and disappears, where is that baby? Where is my daughter? Where is my child? You never know, because she's gone. And you don't know where she's gone, but it's not to a very pleasant situation or a very pleasant lifestyle. And that's what they want to do here. It's all about controlling the women and controlling the non-Muslims. And by controlling the non-Muslims, by hurting us, by hurting our children, we are afraid to do anything against them. This is what so many people are so stupid and silly about. We have to stand up and push back. I've done it in different places. We don't have time to talk about it here. But you don't have to get out there and be forceful about it. But you have to teach people. You have to educate people. I have a program, and I've talked about it, about how to educate high school kids about Islam. And it works very, very, very well. And it doesn't teach the kids unless the kids teach themselves. It's a very simple thing, but we don't have time to talk about the details.
Let me throw this out here if I can. Folks, we've been talking to James E. Horn. Go to jamesehorn.com. You can find him on Twitter. I think it's NYJim.
NYAND.
AND Jim on Twitter.
I'm not sure.
And you're Jim Horn on Facebook.
Jim Horn on Facebook. Jim Horn on Twitter, too, I think.
But also, mostly, jamesehorn.com, because that's where you can go to find his blog, his writings, and also where you can go to get a copy of his book. So, I always say this to all my guests, but I really mean this with regard to you. Number one, thank you for being here tonight. Okay. I really appreciate that you happen to live on the West Coast, because it makes it easy instead of being on the West or the East Coast. And the second thing is, I always offer it, but particularly with regard to you, I would love to have you back. As I said, I have 11 pages of questions for you. There are so many questions unanswered that I didn't even get to pose. I would love to have you back if I can, even as a kind of a recurring or a semi-recurring guest, because this all changes. The stories change by the week. Islam is here, obviously. It's not what you think it is.
It's a growing cancer. It's like the capillaries under your skin is spreading throughout the nation in every facet of our lives. And it's very, very subtle, it's very evil, and it's happening. And people are sticking their heads in the sand.
They don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So, folks, that's James E. Horn. I appreciate your being here tonight very much, sir. We're going to be right back after this. There'll be some happy stories. There'll be some news articles and whatnot. And I think I have some audio cuts for you as well. You're listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Won't I? Come on.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. Live and direct right here from the sumptuous and palatial SHR Media Network studios, where I am broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, 2 miles east of the Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the evil building, the Capitol building in Sacramento, California at 10th and L Street, where on any given night now you can be privy to all sorts of riots. You can be privy to riots on Folsom Boulevard. You can be privy to riots in front of City Hall. You can be privy to riots in front of the DA's office. You can be privy to riots in front of the Capitol building itself. Woohoo! Sacramento, California. All the comforts of home and then some. I frequently read articles, and I've got some happy stories for you tonight. But I frequently read articles, and I enjoy Kurt Schlichter and Victor Davis Hanson in particular. And I keep telling myself that I'm going to contact Victor Davis Hanson, VDH, and see if I can get him on the air, see if I can get him on the show. He's a little difficult to contact, but I'm not giving up yet. But I was talking about California, because that's where I am. And there's an article that just came out by Victor Davis Hanson that is worth reading in toto, because it represents everything that's going on in California right now, and it gives you an excellent perspective as to how fucking insane this state is. And I say it, continue to say it, and I will continue to emphasize whatever it is that's crazy, weird, fucked up, etc. about California. Don't laugh it off. If you think that you have the ability to go, ha, 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 California, they'll all fall into the sea. Just remember, California exports that crap. And we export those people to neighborhoods near you. And if you think that effect hasn't come to your state, depending on where you are, it's already there. So if you think that, we can chop California off like most people would like to do and really allow it to fall into the sea, not so fast if you think you're getting away with that one. This is the article by Victor Davis Hanson, and I love the title of it. California's Rendezvous with Reality. Because those who have been listening to my show for a while, and those who are awake, or I guess I hate to use this term, woke, in terms of the reality regarding leftists, Democrats, and the American media maggots, what I call the LDAM. This is Victor Davis Hanson, California's Rendezvous with Reality. Californians brag that their state is the world's 5th largest economy. They talk as reverentially of Silicon Valley companies, Apple, Facebook, and Google as the ancient Greeks did of their Olympian gods. Hollywood universities such as Caltech, Stanford, Berkeley are cited as permanent proof of the intellectual, aesthetic, and technological dominance of West Coast culture. Californians also see their progressive one-party state as a neo-socialist model for a nation moving hard to the left. Can't disagree with that yet, can you? Of course not. But he asks, Victor Davis Hanson asks, how long will they retain such confidence? California's 40 million residents depend on less than 1% of the state's taxpayers to pay nearly half of the state income tax, which for California's highest tier of earners tops out at the nation's highest rate of 13.3%. In other words, California cannot afford to lose even a few thousand of its wealthiest individual taxpayers. Let me say that again. California, by the numbers, cannot afford to lose even a few thousand of its wealthiest individual taxpayers. Well, wait. A new federal law now caps deductions for state and local taxes at $10,000, a radical change that promises to cost many high-earning taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars. If even a few thousand of the state's 1% flee to nearby no-tax states like Nevada, right next door, or Texas, the governors of which have come into California, by the way. This is BZ getting on a little bit of a pedestal at this point, and lobbying for businesses in California to eschew and shed California and come to Texas, because that's happened. California could face a devastating shortfall in annual income. Wait. Didn't Jerry Brown, the last governor, just tell us that, oh my God, we have an excess of money here in the state of California? Question, for how long? During the 2011 to 2016 California drought, politicians and experts claimed that global warming had permanently altered the climate and that snow and rain would become increasingly rare in California. So, as a result, long-planned, low-elevation reservoirs designed to store water during exceptionally wet years were considered all but useless, and they were never built. Then, in 2016 and 2017, California received record snow and rainfall, and the windfall of millions of acre-feet of runoff was mostly let out to the sea. Nothing since has been learned. California has been again experiencing late 2018, early 2019, January, February, now in March. We have been experiencing here in California rain and cold that could approach seasonal records. We are 145% of snowpack right now. That's great news. The state has been soaked by some 18 trillion gallons of rain in February alone. Why do I have a fucking problem with saying that word? I can't say February. Okay. California received record snow and rainfall, and the windfall of millions of acre-feet in runoff was mostly let out to the sea. California has been soaked by some 18 trillion gallons of rain. 18 trillion gallons of rain. So what did we do with it? With still no effect or no effort to expand California's water storage capacity, millions of acre-feet of runoff are once again cascading out to sea, and may be sorely missed next year, because what do we know about California? It will always, in some form or another, come back cyclically to a drought, because that has historically what has happened for literally hundreds of years in California. Southern California is a desert. Let me clue you in. Okay, I'm ad-libbing. Victor Davis Hanson didn't write all of this. Southern California is a desert. Water is a topic for another day in California. It may not be that big an issue where you are, but in California, oh my God, the backstabbing that has occurred basically since the Mulhollands moved into Southern California in the 20s and 30s and began to create dams and reservoirs, etc. Victor Davis Hanson continues to write, the inability to build reservoirs is especially tragic given that the state's high-speed rail project has gobbled up more than $5 billion in funds without a single foot of track laid. The total cost soared from an original $40 billion promise to a projected $77 billion. But hey, what's a couple of $1 billion here and there? It almost doubled. To his credit, newly elected Governor Gavin Newsom, fearing a budget catastrophe, canceled the statewide project while allowing a few miles of the quarter-built Central Valley track to nowhere to be finished. Because everybody knows that people are dying in California. People are dying to come from all across the United States to get on a train, which is not going to be high speed, by the way, because the rail that they have is not that kind of rail. And I know that even if you're in another state, you're dying to take a train, aren't you, from the massive bastions and beautiful cities of Merced to Bakersfield. Because that's some of the most beautiful land there is in California, right? Wouldn't you like? Yeah. Okay, for years, high-speed rail drained the state budget of transportation funds that might have easily updated nightmarish stretches of the Central Valley's Highway 99 or ensured that the nearby ossified Amtrak line became an actual modern two-track line. California politicians vie with each other to prove their open borders bona fides in an effort to appeal to the estimated 27% of Californians. 27%, over a quarter of Californians were not born in the United States. Over a quarter of the Californians, 27%, were not born in the United States. But the health, educational, and legal costs associated with massive illegal immigration are squeezing the budget. Imagine that. That was totally unforeseen. These are unforeseeable consequences, right? About a third of the California budget goes to the state's Medicare program, Medi-Cal. Half the state's births are funded by Medi-Cal. And in nearly a third of those state-funded births, the mother is an undocumented immigrant. But people tell us, BZ, this is BZ pontificating, but people tell us that's immaterial. Well, not only is it immaterial, but it's racist. Not only is it immaterial and racist, but really the money doesn't have anything to do with it. Not as only is it immaterial and racist and the money doesn't have anything to do with it, but that's not what the Statue of Liberty says, BZ. Plus, going back to Victor Davis Hanson's article, California is facing a perfect storm of homelessness. We live in Sacramento. I have a cabin up at the 4,000-foot elevation in the Sierra Nevada mountains, but it's no shock that I have a wife who lives in Sacramento. So frequently I'm right here in Sacramento and I see it myself. California is, in fact, facing a perfect storm of homelessness. Its labyrinth of zoning and building regulations discourages low-cost housing. Its generous welfare benefits, non-enforcement of vagrancy and public health laws, and it's, hey, you got to admit, it's got a nice moderate climate, right? Draw in the homeless. Nearly listen, and I'm sure at this point you're probably thinking, you're going, oh yeah, I can't wait to hear this. Yeah, yay, California. Nearly 1/3 of the nation's welfare recipients live in California, and nearly 1 in 5, happy days, live below the poverty line. The result is that tens of thousands of people live on the streets and sidewalks of the state's major cities where primeval diseases such as typhus have reappeared. Yay, socialism. Yay, California. Yay, wide open arms, come one, come all. California's progressive government seems clueless how to deal with these issues, given that solutions such as low-cost housing and strict enforcement of health codes are seen as either too expensive or politically correct. I'm going to stop Victor Davis Hanson's article here just for a moment, and I believe I mentioned this either Tuesday or last week. There's a massive disease outbreak right now in Southern California called END, which is exotic Newcastle disease that the state of California doesn't want you to know about, which is on the cusp of infecting the commercial stocks of chicken. Tyson, Foster Farms, etc., if they have allied farms here or in the Southern California area or areas that border Southern California and other states, they are affected by END, which is the exotic Newcastle disease. It's a disease that chickens and fowl and other birds get. It's transmitted from one bird to another, and the only rectification for that is the elimination of the herd. Now, how did exotic Newcastle disease get to be so big in Southern California? It's very simple. From cockfights. Who fights cocks? Asians, Mexicans. Okay, so then they get that, and then the state of California said, well, you know, it would be too harsh and judgmental to go in and cull these herds. Can't we get these people to cooperate? And, of course, there was little, if any, actually no cooperation. So the state of California, because it's timid and it fears someone or everyone pointing the evil finger of you racists at the state of California itself, they didn't get an early hand on controlling exotic Newcastle disease, so it has blossomed like the festering pustule in all throughout the various flocks of birds, which all have to be killed in Southern California. So END coming soon to a state near you. What happens if that really does get into commercial flocks? Do you think it's impossible? I'll let you answer that. Okay, back to Victor Davis Hanson's article. Political correctness. I went astray on that just a little bit, but that's what California is, politically correct. All the social justice warriors live here. Social justice warriors, you're getting what you wanted. Maybe not exactly what you wanted, but you just couldn't see that you really need to have this. So in sum, Victor Davis Hanson says, California has no margin for error. Spiraling entitlements, unwieldy pension costs, money wasted on high-speed rail, inadequate water storage and delivery, and lax immigration policies were formerly tolerable only because, and this is astounding to consider this, to think of this, only because about 150,000 Californians paid huge but federally deductible state income taxes. And there's 20 million people in California, and 150,000 Californians have been keeping the state on the rails. Victor Davis Hanson writes, no more. Californians may have once derided the state's 1% as selfish rich people. Now they're praying that these heavily burdened taxpayers stay put and are willing to pay far more than what they had paid before. What do we know? This is BZ pontificating. What do we know in terms of the make and manner that people vote? Oh, people vote at the ballot box, right? Of course. Well, people also vote with their feet. And many, many people in California are beginning to vote for their feet. That's the only way California can continue to spend money on projects that have not led to safe roads. They have not led to plentiful water. They have not led to good schools. And they have not led to safe streets. So that's why Victor Davis Hanson says, who I'm still going to try to get on the show, that's why Victor Davis Hanson says a California reckoning is on the horizon. And it may not be pretty. It may not be very pretty at all. Now, in the first hour, I was talking to James Horn, and he was addressing the various and sundry issues regarding Islam. There's an article that I discovered in Creeping Sharia, WordPress.com. Indiana's Muslim congressman envisions 35 Muslim representatives in Congress by 2030. Now compare that to what we already know regarding what Mr. Horn said in the previous hour. And there have been two recent Muslim Congress women who have been problematic since the days that they got here and were installed in their offices. And this is what occurred recently. From all the anti-Semitic hate vomit that has been spewing from Omar, the lovely little individual, Muslim individual, female from Michigan, I believe. House passes broad resolution calling out racism, anti-Semitic comments. Oh, but they failed purposely to not name Ilhan Omar, the person who was responsible for the comments. After several days of infighting and a near rebellion by rank-and-file Democrats, as well as a major last-minute revision, today, Thursday, the House passed a bipartisan resolution that only indirectly condemned Minnesota Democrat Representative Ilhan Omar's repeated, and they're not going to stop, anti-Semitic and pernicious comments. And of course, because they want to be pleasant, that resolution never mentioned her by name, but that was the point. What I was going to talk to Mr. Horn about also is that there's another article that just came out of PJ Media, which says that ISIS supporters around the world are starting to rally now for a steep escalation in online jihad. Well, gosh, that's good news, isn't it? This is all done in concert, like I say, with leftists, Democrats in the American media, maggots, and now we're focusing on President Trump because now that the House of Representatives, the majority, are the Democrats, we've got to focus on none of this other stuff is important. Now we need to focus on the impeachment of Donald John Trump, the guy with the dead orange cat on his head, because he had the temerity to win the election in 2016, which is why we need to change the Electoral College, because if we don't win, then we need to change the way everything works. But I mentioned the American media maggots. There's a website called MRC Busters. I think it's newsbusters.org, if I'm remembering correctly. The networks, just to let you know for information, the networks regarding the Russian scandal, there were 2,202 minutes on the Russian scandal and 0 minutes for the no collusion report. So NBC's exclusive reporting came out that the Senate Intelligence Committee, this was on February 14th, I believe, last month. I think this is going to be the last article that I get to before I pause for the bottom of the hour break. Of course, I'll be right back another half hour after that. NBC exclusively reported on February 14th that the Senate Intelligence Committee found there was no material evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, and none of the three major networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, none of them gave it a single second of coverage. And yet these are the same people that plea with you, that beg you to understand that, well, they're not biased. They are absolutely apolitical and unbiased. Really?
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, this is Michael Wright.
And I'm Shannon Wright.
Join us for The Right Way with Shannon and Mike, Monday through Thursday from 7 to 9 a.m. right here on SHR Media.
Why are they joining us?
For fun things like sports, politics.
Oh, maybe some news and entertainment?
And all kinds of other things.
Money and recipes and events, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so join us Monday through Thursday, 7 to 9 a.m. here on shrmedia.com.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunitz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunitz.
Hey girls, Carry Girl Gear is here. More and more women every day are concealed carrying, participating in competitive shooting, and getting firearms training. It's not a boys' club anymore, and we don't have to shop in their stores anymore either. Finally, a cool and unique clothing line just for women. Dope tees and hats for the patriotic concealed carry and 2A girl. So what are you waiting for? Go check out carrygirlgear.com today.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
The new show on the SHR Media Network, Sackheads Against Tyranny. On shrmedia.com. Go there quick like a bunny, 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific every Wednesday. Live and direct on the SHR Media Network. shrmedia.com. Be there.
For 50 years, I've seen the American people blinded by corrupt politicians, a lapdog media, and deceptive Islam. The one thing the elites fear is one man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me through Spreaker, iTunes, and SoundCloud, through SHR Media and the Western Free Radio Network, for half a century of experienced perspective on political and social issues, weekly on The Unpleasant Blind Guy. And catch me on Jeff Mitchell's EDL Radio on blogtalkradio.com. There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capitol, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern, only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad. Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show. The episode for March 7th, year of our Lord, 2019, 2019 already. March already. Thanks for being in chat. Thanks for listening live. Thanks for listening on the Redcon 1 Media Network. Thanks for listening at SHR, on the Facebook pages, and also on the YouTube channel. We're going to have happy stories in just a bit. CPAC occurred, and it was last week. It kind of wrapped up last week. And when I heard this next audio cut, again, it inspired me, but it also made me realize, yes, we are at a point in American history where we're going to have to try to fight socialism, which becomes communism, because that's its history, that's what it does, and that's what we've learned. And this is Sebastian Gorka, who made about 27 seconds. And this is what we're having to talk about now. This is the state of America. right now.
You are on the front lines of the war against communism coming back to America under the guise of democratic socialism, which is just a PC term for communism.
Yes.
I want everyone to take to heart Donald J. Trump is never going to let it happen, and as he said to Congress, America will never be a socialist country.
Absolutely. But how sad is it that we even had to address that? How sad is it that Donald John Trump even had to mention that in a State of the Union speech? That's where we are in the United States. And right now on the Berserk Bobcat Saloon, this is where we are.
It's time for happy stories and good times.
This is from the GreeleyTribune.com. With Colorado red flag bill on the deck, Weld County lawmakers, commissioners move to protect gun rights with a sanctuary. Well, BZ, what are you talking about now? The 2019 through 2020 Board of Weld County Commissioners, in the face of likely passage of a so-called red flag bill introduced by Democrats that would require residents to turn over firearms in certain cases, Republican Colorado lawmakers, this is occurring in Colorado, Republican Colorado lawmakers are calling on Republican Weld County commissioners to ignore the law should it pass. In conservative Weld County, one of the few in Colorado, beautiful as it is, but go back, ask yourself just a little bit, what did Colorado do? What happened to Colorado? It got bent over because it's a beautiful state. And lots of Hollywood individuals, wealthy individuals from big cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco and New York and other leftist areas, with their massive and vast amounts of wealth, they decided, I need to buy 50, 100, 200 acres, Robert Redford, of Colorado, because it's so beautiful here. And when I'm moving to Colorado, I'm bringing my leftist ways with me. So if you're wondering how Colorado went left, now you have a pretty good idea. So in conservative Weld County, the word sanctuary has gotten a bad rap, but House Republicans Lori Sain, Republican of Firestone, Steve Humphrey, Greeley, and Perry Buck, Windsor, are encouraging Weld commissioners to declare Weld County a Second Amendment sanctuary county. The three lawmakers have sent the request on official Colorado House of Representatives letterhead. As representatives of the Colorado House, we want to offer our emphatic support for Weld County becoming a Second Amendment sanctuary county. The letter reads in part, stop. Well, this is terrible. The leftists are railing. How can you decide what laws to obey and what laws not to obey? That's just not right, say the people that have been opting and making sanctuary cities and sanctuary states for immigrants legal for quite some time. I guess in the world of leftists, it depends on whose ox is getting gored at the particular time. The move comes in response to House Bill 19-1177. If you're in Colorado, you might want to write that down to check its movement. House Bill 19-1177. The Extreme Risk Protection Order bill that would allow law enforcement or others to seek the removal of firearms from individuals deemed to be at risk of harming themselves or others. The bill passed second reading in the House this past week, but still must officially pass out of the House before going to the Colorado Senate. So arguments from conservatives, including Weld County Sheriff Steve Reams, who's cited in the letter, they center on constitutional questions. I am fucking gobsmacked to think that the Constitution would come up in consideration of something as leftist-leaning as removing guns. Come on, the Second Amendment should have nothing to do when we're saving the children. And that's what we're doing here, aren't we? We're saving the children. But now those evil right-wingers are bringing up their stupid constitutional issues again. Jesus, don't they ever go away? So the questions are, Does the law, which allows family members of law enforcement or law enforcement to initiate the order and then requires the respondent to prove innocence, where's due process in that? Does it violate due process? Oh, due process. Oh, you mean the thing that we'd rather remove from Kavanaugh, but we have to consider, we have to yield due process to Governor Northam because he needs due process. He's on the left. Kavanaugh, screw him. He doesn't need due process. Due process, that's immaterial. And is it constitutional in terms of the Second Amendment in itself? This bill, he says, the sheriff, in my opinion, is an attack on firearms and firearms ownership under the disguise of trying to help people that may suffer from some sort of mental disturbance or imbalance. Reams wrote in a mid-February Facebook post about the measure. Stop. Leftist Democrats and American media maggots, the LDAM, are very smart. They're not stupid people. I have a blog piece coming out about AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, where I make the argument that she's a fucking dumpster fire, but she's not stupid. And of course, people will say, "BZ, you've said she's as smart as a houseplant, as a potted ficus." Well, I've come to recognize the error of my ways, and you will see, and I'll be talking about that next Tuesday. However, you have to do in a situation like this, because I say leftists aren't stupid. They're doing everything for leftists are like Islam. Leftists are like Muslims. They don't play small ball. They don't play short-sighted. They play long ball. Islam plays long ball. Leftists play long ball. Republicans sometimes can't play more than 2 inches in front of their fucking heads. But having said that, BZ always says, do what BZ calls the logical extension. That is to say, well, let's look down the road a little bit here, because abrogations on our rights are incremental. They're like the frog in the boiling pot. You put the frog in the pot and the water's not so bad and the frog doesn't mind staying there, and you turn on the heat and the heat gets up a little bit. Only incrementally does it become an issue. It's incremental here. You cannot yield to anyone about any of your constitutional rights. Never. You cannot yield to anyone anything in the Bill of Rights. You cannot do it because it leads to so much more. Socialism, which is advocated by leftists, leads to communism. We've known that. 100 years of communism was celebrated air quotes, recently. And it was celebrated knowing that, oh, that's right, in 100 years of communism, we've only killed 100 million people because of communism, but 1 person is a distinct loss. Isn't that what Stalin said? And 1 million people are a statistic. So we want to move from socialism to communism, because that's how it goes. That's how history goes. It's the slippery slope. See what I did there, Sackhead Sean? And the slippery slope is never give in. Never give in, because here's what's next. And this has already been proposed in the state of California and other states as well. Because the red flag laws are already being pushed this way by leftists. On its face, doesn't it sound great that if you have some nut-butter loon who lives next door to you and you see him doing crazy things and you think he's got some guns, maybe you'd want to turn him in some fashion? Isn't that what all the leftists say? Here's where it's already going. It's going to schools. If you find somebody that you think has a gun, and they're not comporting themselves in the typical leftist arena, and that's where it's going, trust me. If you have someone that isn't lockstep marching with all the leftists in a given school, this is being pushed into not only schools, where I fear these people, but hey, look, you can turn in somebody in a school. Now it's going to a workplace. Hey, I don't like Rod. Rod got my job. I happen to know that Rod fires his guns at a gun club every other Saturday. Rod is evil. You know what? I could swear that I heard Rod say that if he doesn't get the next job here, that he's going to come back with an AK-47. Boom, 911, there goes a cop. That's called swatting. Remember doxing? Remember swatting? Swatting still occurs. So does doxing. I'm sure you see where this is all going, don't you? And all from a happy little story. But I do what I call the logical extension. Figure it out down the road where this stuff can go, where it can logically lead. This next story is, in fact, a happy story, and it comes from around here in Sacramento. The Sacramento Police Department, I won't go there right now. I'm probably going to do this next week. But the Sacramento Police Department has a new helicopter, and it was named for the fallen officer from Davis PD named Natalie Corona. So what happened is that the chopper, the new Sacramento Police Department helicopter, is going to be known as Halo in honor of fallen Davis police officer Natalie Corona. Natalie Corona, by the way, went through the Sacramento Police Department Academy, and she often visited Sacramento's Bell Avenue Elementary School as part of the department school outreach, because that's where she went. Funny thing is, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away in the 1950s, BZ went to the Bell Avenue School as well. And by the way, pointing out that the name Corona in Spanish can mean crown or halo. So Halo 1 for a helicopter? Yeah, I'd say that's a perfect name. Now, This could be a happy story. I mean, when I saw this, I thought, you guys are so out of it. You are such loons. Well, now we can laugh at leftists because I think for about a minute and a half, this is worth laughing at.
There are people out there that are so scared about this that they feel that they can't actually have a family.
These women are so fearful of climate change that they don't want children. They're part of a growing group called Birth Strike.
Our planet is in a kind of collapse.
Yes.
The natural world is collapsing around us, and that's actually happening right now. And I'm so disappointed by the response by our authorities to this crisis.
Right, just like AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you can't have kids, apparently, in Britain. This is a thing, too.
And so freaked out by it, everything that I've read.
Yeah.
That I've basically last year I came to the decision that I couldn't bring a child into that.
And you have come to the same conclusion, Alice?
Yeah, I have.
Thank you, Alice.
I mean, each day for me is a struggle.
Each day is a
I really
struggle.
do. I'm so
depressed.
And that has led to just a fear that I've never felt before. And my decision for being on Birth Strike mostly has come from not wanting to pass that fear on to someone else. If
Birth Strike. She's on Birth Strike.
we're in this situation now, you know, even since my parents had me, we've destroyed 60% of life on this planet.
We've destroyed 60% of life on this planet. See, if I had a producer, what you would have heard following, we've destroyed 60% of life on this planet is... But, of course, I don't have a producer, and that's not what you heard, right? Okay.
Pass that fear on to someone else. If we're in this situation now, you know, even since my parents had me, we've destroyed 60% of life on this planet.
Right.
What would that be like when my child's my age? Will there be 10% left? That's not just to do with being, you know...
That's right. So in one generation, there'll be 10% of this planet left at the rate we're going. Are you fucking kidding me? And the answer is no, I'm not.
A nature and wildlife enthusiast like I am, that's actually dangerous as well.
Yeah. So they're on Birth Strike. Yeah, you're fucking loons. This is kind of interesting. This is from the Gateway pundit. Candace Owens drops a bomb. This was interesting, but primordially and primarily absolutely uncovered by the American media maggots. Candace Owens said Michael Cohen approached her to lie about racist Trump. Whoa, 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 whoa. Why haven't we heard about this? Now, Michael Cohen was the dude du jour for the past 2 weeks, but we haven't heard that he solicited Candace Owens to try to portray Donald John Trump, the President of the United States, the guy with a dead orange cat on his head, as a racist and a con man. Michael Cohen, a convicted liar who was disbarred, by the way, when he testified in that congressional hearing. He called, if you remember, he called President Trump, a racist, and he called him a con man, and he called him a cheat. Well, Candace Owens, you didn't hear about that until now, did you? No, of course you didn't. That's why this is a happy story, because it needs to get out there and tell people. Candace Owens dropped this little surprise in. She tweeted out on a private Twitter message that Michael Cohen sent her last summer a message and said, should I go nuclear on Michael Cohen, who I know from years ago and tried to approach me last summer to help change the narrative, that is to say, lie about the president. Owen said, asking, because I'm thinking I should. This coward plotted the entire racist lie to save himself. Yet you didn't hear about that. Oh, Michael Cohen was already sentenced to prison for 36 months for lying to Congress. So, as was said before, I think Jordan said this. Okay, so we have a convicted liar who lied to Congress, and then the Democrats invite him back into Congress so that, what, he can lie to them again? Because the standard retort to something like this in open court when I was a cop is if you had somebody lie, the first thing that any good defense attorney would say is, well, okay, were you lying to me now or are you lying to me then? Because you're lying to me. So they allowed a convicted liar to testify against Trump, and completely left out of the situation and uncovered by the American media maggots was the fact that Michael Cohen tried to get Candace Owens to go along with that meme. Here's another. This is, in fact, a happy story. Ohio, by the way, was recently dropped from the Democrat Super PAC's list of 2020 target states as the party moved to the left. Remember, Ohio has pretty much consistently been an important state, but even the Dem Super PACs are starting to have second thoughts about Ohio. A top Democrat Super PAC that spent $133 million in support of Hillary Clinton back in 2016, why wouldn't they? Said it no longer is considered Ohio a target state for the 2020 presidential election because it looks to align with an increasingly socialist Democrat party. In a memo, Priorities USA, a moneyed super PAC that supported both President Barack Obama's 2012 re-election campaign and Clinton's 2016 run for the White House, downgraded Ohio's importance and labeled the state a GOP watch. Along with states Texas and Ohio. I think that's kind of a happy story. Here's another one that just came out. And every once in a while I talk to you folks about Schadenfreude. And if you're not aware of Schadenfreude, I'm certain you're aware of hypocrisy. But Schadenfreude, go to your favorite search engine and look it up. This is like a big building with a lighted neon sign on it, screaming in the dead of night, Schadenfreude are us. Because I love this. Were you aware of gradations? Oh, BZ, what are you talking about? Will Smith, the actor, Will Smith now is catching crap for, and this is a visual, for air quotes, colorism after he was cast as Venus and Serena Williams' father. Okay, Will Smith, let's see. Will Smith, I think he's an actor, isn't he? So he's catching crap for what? What are you talking about, BZ? I don't quite get what you're saying yet. Will Smith is catching serious backlash over colorism for his lighter skin tone after being cast as Richard Williams, father of famed tennis stars Venus and Serena Williams. According to a report from Deadline, Smith is going to play Richard Williams in the upcoming film King Richard. and that's based by another script. The film is going to tell the story of the 77-year-old dude who was the father of Venus and Serena, who, despite having apparently no tennis experience whatsoever, he overcame a ton of hardships and a bad past, and he raised and coached what became two of the greatest tennis stars to ever play the game. Both chicks, both black. But according to Deadline, the question now about Will Smith is, in the leftist community, and this is why they are such fucktards. Apparently Will Smith is not black enough to play Richard Williams in the movie. And so leftists are hoisting leftists, essentially, hoisting each other on the petard of their own making. Here's something else you talk about. Now, wait a minute. BZ, are you trying to say that Will Smith is a sellout? That he would deign to play Richard Williams, who clearly is darker than he is, and he's apparently stealing a role from another black actor male who could play it much better than he could because he has darker skin? Van Jones, communist Van Jones. If you didn't know he was communist, I'm telling you that right now. He is a communist. Van Jones, the resistance on Twitter, ripped Van Jones a new butthole because he appeared at CPAC. Just the fact that, and he's a CNN commentator, just the fact that he appeared at CPAC, and oh my God, he even extended some credit to President Trump and Republicans for their accomplishments of criminal justice reform. That was, oh, come on, that was absolutely too much to take.
I've been to the border. I've been to Native American reservations. I've been to inner cities. It's the same pain. Poverty, addiction, and a broken criminal justice system in red counties and blue cities, wherever you go. And neither party has done enough for the people at the bottom who have those three issues. And yet, and I have to say this, Trump on poverty did opportunity zones. On addiction did opioid package. And on criminal justice did First Step. And I'm here to say on those three issues, what? I will work with or against any Republican or any Democrat to help the people that neither party has helped for way too long.
Okay, that's pretty clear. Van Jones, you're going to hell. You're going to leftist hell. I think that's pretty clear. I've enjoyed the show. I hope you've enjoyed the show. The first hour's guest, James E. Horn. You can go to his website, jamesehorn.com. You can buy his books. I bought one of them just before I came to the show here tonight. You can too. James Horn has said that he will come back, and I want him to continue to educate us about Islam. He's blunt. He's truthful. Some of the words are offensive. And to that I say, I don't care. Couldn't care less. If you got offended, oh well. Keep listening to the show, and you'll probably be offended again, I would guess, right?
Monsieur has unlocked! We'll meet again.
Boy, did I enjoy this show. Really enjoyed James Horn. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I got to tell you, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here on the SHR Media Network. And also, thanks to Redcon One Media for simulcasting me on their network as well. If you want to contact me, you can find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP. Promotional consideration is by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also by Pratt & Whitney Engines. Thrust. You can trust. And also, tonight, just for this show, thanks to the Allahu Snack Bar, a little bit of Muhammad in every bite. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC 135 Kettle 1 refueling team, with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. Thanks to you for listening in chat, listening partaking, I should say, of chat, listening live, listening in podcast. Thanks to James E. Horn. I appreciate everybody here. You guys have a great weekend. I'm going to tap out now. God bless. Take care. Be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob. Go to sleep.
Good night, and good luck.